Hello and welcome to All Things Seniors. This is your host Rafiq. With over 20 years of caregiving experience, on this channel I am empowering other caregivers one episode at a time. We caregivers have often seen our loved ones forget their keys or forget something, and we ask ourselves, oh, is it normal forgetfulness? Or actually, this could be dementia. And the word dementia brings such a weight. It needs diagnosis. It has some symptoms. It is a vague, big umbrella, and we ask ourselves, how do I know if this is normal forgetfulness or it's dementia? So I thought that we should create a video where I can share with you top signs that you should look for, and if you find some of those signs, I'll tell you what should be the next steps that you should take. Okay, so let's start by asking ourselves, what is forgetfulness, like the normal thing, versus dementia? A regular forgetfulness would be that happens to all of us, right? We put something, we are now looking for it. We don't remember where it is because that happens to all of us. That's normal. If that's happening not very frequently, no concerns. But if you find your loved one frequently forgetting something, if you find them that it is impacting their quality of life and the regular function of their life, they're unable to do the things which they have been able to do all their lives, that is dementia. And let's look at some of the top signs of how you would say, yeah, that looks like dementia. Let me take the next step. Let's talk about some of the top signs today. Number one, the first sign you will find is that your loved one may repeat the same questions, maybe within a span of very short time. Like they asked you something and within a couple of minutes they would ask you the same thing again, not realizing that they already asked you and you have already replied. And this frequent forgetfulness or repeatedly asking the same questions is something which is very different than their normal conversation style. Like going back to the initial differentiation between what is forgetfulness versus dementia would be not being able to do their normal functions of life. In this case, conversation. You are conversating, they've asked you a question, you already replied, and in a few minutes' time they asked you again. And in a few minutes' time they asked you again. And when they show you this sign, this is a very common sign of early signs and symptoms of dementia. So that would be number one. Number two, the second sign is again very conversation related. You would find somebody, especially in a group conversation setting, where let's say you have an auntie who has always taken part in this family conversations, and now all of a sudden you see her quieter than usual, or she would often ask, sorry, I missed what you guys are talking about, or oh my god, I'm not following what you guys, and they will have this anxiety. That body language, you can see that they are unable to follow the conversation, and that's another symptom that their brain is not cognitively working as efficiently as it should or as it used to be. Again, going back to the example of being able to do the normal functions of life, and if they are unable to, that's another sign of not being able to follow and the sign of potential dementia. So that's your sign number two. Let's look at number three. The third symptom you will find in people who are showing signs of dementia would be irritability or anxiety or mood swings, because what's going on in their mind that they have always been able to, for example, follow the conversation or know what's coming or what's happening, or they remember they are in the present. But in their mind, now they find themselves all of a sudden, what's going on? Where am I? Or what these guys are talking about, because their brain is not being able to follow. And that is making them anxious as to not knowing. Like this happens to all of us. If we don't know what's going on, we feel anxious, right? In a new position, in a new place, in a new environment, in a new conversation. That happens to all of us. It becomes their reality. It happens to now with them all the time. And now their brain is giving them the signs of anxiety and they're feeling perplexed. And that makes them irritable. And their body will show those signs which you as a caregiver may need to look for so that you can say, hey, I see the symptoms of early onset of dementia. So that's your sign number 3. Let's talk number 4. Number 4, you'll find them making some poor judgment or choices in simple daily tasks. Like you would find them not maybe turning off the stove, knowing that the cooking has been done and they're around the kitchen area, but they do not turn off the stove because in their mind it's not about forgetting to turn it off. In their mind, the link between the stove and cooking has been disconnected. Or if they would like to pour some water into the glass, they'll take a glass and keep on filling because they do not understand the concept of the glass being full. And you'll find these odd things in a very normal kitchen or social setting, which you would have always seen them otherwise doing reasonably well. And now, going back to the example of dementia, not being able to do their daily life things, not being able to perform those skills because of the cognitive decline is your next sign of maybe dementia. If you're liking what you're saying, like the episode, subscribe to the channel, because that way YouTube will show it to more caregivers and we'll be able to help more families. Let's talk about the next symptom. Another big symptom is that they may find navigation to be a big challenge. Like they would, in a familiar place, like the club maybe where you go to all the time, or your neighbor's home, or your relative's place where you have been so many times, and they will find themselves in this familiar place, they will find it very unfamiliar. They would not know where they are. Or if they are driving, they will find lost maybe in a similar route. And that is something where their brain is not linking the next step. There is a disconnect. And again, they will go back to showing those signs of anxiety because all of a sudden they find themselves not knowing what's happening, right? And that's your big sign. That's one of the bigger signs of maybe there is dementia, right? So that's that. Let's talk about the next one. And the last one, which I want to emphasize, is going back to communication. You will find that sometimes in a conversation, you'll suggest them to do something and they would not be able to comprehend what has been told to them. They will ask you again, or if they don't even ask, they'll just freeze in a moment as if they didn't know what just happened. They would not be able to understand the complex conversation if there are multiple people talking. A lot of the symptoms and signs will come from these social settings. Many of them come from conversations. So as caregivers, it is our responsibility that we keep an eye on our loved ones if they are showing these signs. Let's talk about, if we see these signs, what should we be doing? My top suggestion to you, if you start seeing some of these signs, is to start documenting it. Do not right away tell your loved one, oh, I think something is wrong with your brain, because that's not good. I always say, don't be the bad cop. If you are the primary caregiver, you don't be the bad cop, right? So you start documenting those things so that in future, let's say in a couple of weeks' time, or a month's time, or 2 months' time, when you go to the doctor's appointment with your loved one, like in my case, if I were to see something like that for my dad, I'll document those things so that when I go to my father's doctor's appointment, I will find some time privately with doctor to share some of these symptoms that I have been observing, so that now, based on my observations and the insight that I bring to the doctor, he or she may be able to then perform their diagnosis on the situation, because they have their own tests. But it is very important that you list down these observations. It should not be, oh, I have a hunch something is going wrong, because if you don't have instances, even the doctor may just say, oh, it could be simple forgetfulness. But if you have like 20 instances in past 4 weeks of conversations not being followed or navigation not being understood, these are very obvious signs and red flags for doctors. But if you don't have them written, you may forget and they may not know what's going on. Very, very important that you document. My other advice to you would be, as I mentioned, let this, even the suggestion of getting it diagnosed, come from someone else. If you are the primary caregiver, I would say, do not be the person who will say, I think we should get you diagnosed for dementia. it won't go well, because I always say that older adults are already losing so much. They're losing their body strength, they're losing their friends. This is the last thing they want to lose, right? So you don't be the a bearer of the bad news by saying, I think you have dementia. I would say wait for the next doctor's appointment, or if that is way too late in future, bring somebody who is a professional caregiver, who is either a nurse who is coming in, or somebody, a medical professional in your family. Share these thoughts with them. Let them come and say, for example, let's say if it was my dad, my sister would come and say, Dad, would you say that some of these things are happening? I am observing. Like, she should say, I am observing, not that Rafiq told me, because Rafiq is the good cop, right? So playing the balance of relationship is extremely important, because they may not be anything, right? Or they may be, but you don't be the bad cop. You remain the good cop, because you have to deal with your loved one day in, day out. And a doctor or a nurse or a medical professional from the family, when they come in, they recommend it, mostly then you will be playing the supporting role and say, really? Okay, you know what? If you think that has to happen, I will go with Dad. So that your loved one doesn't feel that it's a difficult situation and they are by themselves. If you bring it to it, they are by themselves. They don't have anyone else to lean on to. But if the medical professional brings this suggestion of, yeah, I think you guys should diagnose it, your loved one can lean on to you. And I think that is extremely important, that you are always on their side. And the last piece of it is, dementia is one of those things which humankind does not have a handle on as yet, right? When that comes, whether it is already diagnosed or just being a suggested thing, people get really anxious. They are already declining. This anxiety makes them even more rattled, and they keep on being anxious all the time now. In by themselves, when they are sitting, they are thinking about it, and that's not good for their health. Be supportive, talk about it, be with them, be normal. Even if something comes up, be normal. Do not change your relationship with them, because many a times people with dementia, even when it progresses, they don't remember what's going on, but they feel the tone of your language, they feel the presence of your love. And if you are a rested caregiver, you'll be a better caregiver. You'll be able to better take care of them. I hope today's episode was helpful for you. I really enjoyed our time today. If you know somebody who is a caregiver of somebody with dementia, share their suggestions and tips here. If you are that person, share your tips. We would love to learn from you. More caregivers will learn from you, and we all become a better community of caregivers. It was great having you today here, and I'll see you next week. Ciao.